stuff.
So, Jeff, I wanted to ask you something not Realms related, because for those of you who may not know your background, maybe
Okay.
some new fans of D&D, you were involved in a ton of products for D&D, and I'm going to put a graphic up here. You won't be able to see it, but the viewers will. Of all your, a lot of your work,
Okay.
you wrote the Manual of the Planes first edition for AD&D. You wrote the Al-Qadim setting for
Yes.
D&D. You wrote Spelljammer. You wrote the Marvel Face Rip game. You wrote a few novels. One of these games that's making sort of a comeback, it's become a meme on Twitter almost, is Spelljammer. People seem to have a real fondness for
Oh
Spelljammer,
yes.
and this sort of Victorian space adventures wrapped around a D&D setting.
Mhm.
I guess my question to you is regarding Spelljammer. What were you guys smoking in Lake Geneva back then, and can I have some of that?
I usually get.
Spelljammer confirmed.
Yes. I think that Watsi just taunts people with that, you know. Um,
Yeah.
People always ask that question about Manual of the Planes too, and the answer is no, no, really, I'm just that crazy. Um, Spelljammer came out of a pitch meeting. We all went to lunch at a local
Brownie shop.
bar restaurant called Augie's in Lake Geneva. And this was Jim Ward was in charge. Warren Spector was his second in command. And we were all pitching ideas, and I pitched an idea of you've got a guy in full armor, a fighter. He's standing on the deck of a ship in space, and he's not floating off, and he can breathe, and basically we have space adventures. And Jim loved that idea, and that started us down the path that became Spelljammer. And so it really did come out of the aether as far as, and it was interesting because one thing I always bothered me was, people would say, "Oh, D&D, that's your generic fantasy stuff." So we're saying, "Hey, we're giving you space, and we're giving you crystal spheres, and we're giving you all sorts of stuff." And now, yeah, D&D in space is now just your standard fantasy as well. So okay, fine. We
And
push the borders back, and that's where the borders are. So, but it was a great little setting, and I love. There's the new Baldur's Gate that's coming out as a computer game, and the opening cinematic for that has a nautiloid that basically is flying and
Yes.
gets Yankee on red dragons. Just okay, this is cool stuff.
well, there's some of the fifth edition adventures actually have little Easter eggs to Spelljammer sprinkled throughout them. So Spelljammer is very
Yes, they
much
do.
still a thing in the fiction.
The GIF shows up.
Yeah.
And I think they basically, make reference to it every so often. I don't know if they're ever going to do a Spelljammer setting or a hardback. No one talks to me. But but every time they do, the fandom basically says, "Ooh, Spelljammer!"
They've been confirming Spelljammer for the past 6 years
Spelljammer
already.
confirmed.
Yes.
Spelljammer confirmed.